Should we pray? Amen. As I mentioned in the morning class, I've been asked to do 2 afternoon classes a week, Monday and Wednesday. This week I'm only doing Monday, not Wednesday. Brother Theodore's doing that one on his last day here. And I was also asked to try and do something different in the afternoons than in the mornings. So it all makes good sense, but I'm struggling to juggle those things around. But I'll try to do my best to keep them separate as best as I'm able to. So before we go into that study, I just want to have a recap of what we did do this morning. So we went to Adventist Home, page 127, which we only began to read at the end, and we went to the Review and Herald, January 10th, 1882. And what did we see in that article, paragraph? What did we pick up from there? From the Review and Herald one, the second one.
Threefold nature of man.
Do you remember that? It's the threefold nature of man. It's all of this picture here. A problem that I often have is I write things on the board that people say. Sometimes I forget to rub it off. And so sometimes there's things that are not correct, and I know people just write it down, and sometimes I've had the problem that people get confused about what is correct and what isn't correct. So I do try to either mark it that it's not correct or we came to a different conclusion as we're going along. But we haven't concluded this, so that's why I haven't changed any of the board work. So the second article was this information here, threefold nature of man. It says intellectual, moral and physical. And someone said that the intellectual is the mind, did a picture of a brain, the heart, and the physical would be the body. Then we read another statement from Healthful Living, 13.5. What did that say? What did we read from Healthful Living? Sorry?
It's the body is. It didn't say the body, but the house we live in.
Yes, it says it is the house in which we live. So that's this statement in the box, and we could see that it is the house, and contextually we saw that it was either the physical structure, the body, but it wasn't the spirit. I left the spirit up there, so let's cross that out. And the problem with that is this we is the man. So if we bring this model back into this one, we see that we've got the mind, the heart, and then what would appear to be the physical here. And we took a lot of time to discuss this, but you could see that there was a contradiction if you try and integrate these two thoughts. And we didn't look at Adventist Home 327 paragraph 1, so I just left that as a reference. Brother Theodore mentioned that. And Sister Olivine read to us Fundamentals of Education 322. Then in Adventist Home it talks about the lower passions and the higher powers, which are the twofold nature of man. So I've got it here, higher and lower. And so I said there's this issue about, is it threefold or is it twofold, the nature of a human being? So we went over to here. Went to Matthew 13, 24 to 30. And we spoke about 2 classes. And the 2 classes that you see are the wheat and tares, gold and dross. And went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different stories or parables that talk about 2 groups. And then we saw that in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which we just threw out there, it's not to say that these don't have 3 groups. We saw that there were 3 groups. We gave the references here. And the question is it 2 or is it 3? Because his third person is integral to the story. And what I'm suggesting is that the story that we're seeing in all these parables, which I think most of us should understand are just symbols of a reform line, can be seen in the nature of a human being. It's threefold and it's 2. There's this combination of these 2 and 3, and I just showed that pictorially here. And we spent a lot of time discussing, so I don't know if you've had a thought about it, that if this is you, this is the house in which you live, and they're two separate things. It's a box, and you live in this box. We're spiritual beings who live in a physical matrix, if I can put it that way. And that's as far as we got this morning. So that's just a quick recap. I'll recap again tomorrow, so I don't want to take any questions on that issue, on that subject, because we'll do that tomorrow.
Hebrews 11:9 describes that nicely with the tabernacle, or dwelling in the tabernacle.
If you can bring that up tomorrow in tomorrow's class,
Okay.
I'll write it down. Hebrews 11:9. I'll do it in red. If you remember, I said this morning I don't have a clear direction in where I want to go in these studies. So some of these thoughts might seem random, but hopefully each one of these little pieces of jigsaw will come together as we come to towards the end of the trimester, and we might be able to use some of these thoughts, ideas, to come to a more comprehensive or rounded understanding of where I guess I want us to go and be. So if they seem like I'm jumping here and then jumping there, bear with me. If it doesn't make sense, please ask. Don't just sit back. So this is just a random thought. A part of the randomness isn't just to get to somewhere. It's, there's a song, it says there's joy in the journey. Yeah.
Amen.
There should be fun just getting to where we want to go, hopefully. So even if it doesn't go anywhere, maybe it'll be fun to try and understand something. So standard reform line, first, second and third angels' messages. Actually, I shouldn't say that it's a standard because I don't know what the standard is anymore. So first, second and third. So say this is the Millerite reform line. Okay? So if I put the arrival, this is time of the end. Do you agree with that? Yeah. And the date? Okay, good. You all got good memories, or you've got your computers? How do we know the arrival of the first angel is in 1798?
Well, there's a period of darkness that precedes it, and the 1260-year prophecy ends there. So that would have to be the time of the end. And there's also a reformer that's raised up. There's lots of different things.
Some proof texts, some quotes.
Daniel 12:4.
So if you read that for us. Sorry?
And 1140.
Before you read it, tell us what this is going to prove. So you're going to read verse 4 to us. Tell us what you're going to prove by reading verse 4.
That at the time of the end, the opening of the book that was shut up by
So 12:4 is going to say, at the time of the end, what happens?
it says at the time of the end, the book.
So at the time of the end, a book's going to be opened.
Right.
Okay, so you go ahead and read that.
But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased.
Okay, so you've got at the time of the end,
There's an increase of knowledge.
we've got, I'll put IK for that. And where does it say the book was open?
At the time of the end.
Which phrase that says the book was opened?
It says, shut up the book even unto the time of the end.
Okay, so the book is shut up to the time of the end.
Right.
Then by inference,
Right.
Yeah.
it's opened.
Right.
Do you all agree with that? Okay, and then it says there's going to be an increase of knowledge. You read 1140?
Yeah. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over.
Okay, so tell us what that, I should have asked you before actually, what is that verse proving with respect to the question that I asked?
Because it's using the phrase time of the end, and if you look into the history of this verse, Sister White talks about it in Great Controversy, and she says that there was
This verse?
sorry, no, not this particular verse, but the history of it. She speaks about the history of the time of the end in 1798. 1798 being the time of the end. Sister White speaks about that in the Great Controversy.
Could you find the verse for us, or the
Okay.
passage, or someone? So now you're going to bring the Spirit Prophecy quote. So what did 1140 say, by the way? Someone else can find that. What did 1140 say? So what's that in reference to the arrival of the first angel? How's that going to bring us to that point?
Okay, yeah. Don't know about that.
Okay, come back to you, my brother. So we've got the book is opened and an increase of knowledge. And how's that the first angel's message?
Well, if we go to the verse that Sister
1140?
1140, it gives you that the history of it identifies the event that marks that date, 1798.
Okay, so two people are fighting,
Yes.
but we haven't made it 1798. We've only got time at the end. We haven't got 1798 yet.
Is the question, how is it the first angel's message?
So I'm asking, how do we know the first angel's message arrives at the time of the end, and the time of the end is 1798? How do we know those three things? Connecting those all together. Because all we've got so far is two verses that say the time of the end. One of them says, two kings fight. And the other one says, the book is opened and there's an increase of knowledge. I let you get away with the book open because it doesn't quite say that.
By inference.
Well, the history that we understand from the Pope being taken captive in France, this is what Daniel 11:40 is talking about. So if we're familiar with the history of the papacy coming into power, the 1260 years, and everything that Daniel 7 and 8.
But you got 1798, but you haven't got the time of the end and connected that to 1798, and we haven't connected it to the first angel. I want to do someone else, Brother Theodore, the students, if possible.
It's Great Controversy 88, page 355.
Great Controversy.
Page GC 88, page 355, paragraph 3.
Is it not in the 1911 version? It's only in the.
It is, but I.
If you can give us that one,
Okay.
it's more commonly. It's normally the next hit.
Yeah. It says here,
Page, sorry.
page 355, paragraph 3.
Don't read it yet. 355, paragraph 3.
Yeah.
What is this going to prove?
The everlasting gospel. So the first angel's message is the first message of the everlasting gospel. Shall I read?
No, tell me what it's going to
okay.
prove, then read it.
It's going to prove that the message, that the everlasting gospel was announced from the book of Daniel. I mean, it's in Revelation, but Daniel, Revelation are one book. And Daniel was told to not open the book, and it was sealed until the time of the end. So at the time of the end, the book was unsealed.
So this quote is going to say,
It's going to talk about the everlasting gospel,
so it's going to say at the time of the end, what's going to happen?
that the book of Daniel, the part of the prophecy...
You don't read it.
Okay.
I want you to tell me what this is proving. I want us to try and become familiar with reading the passage and then giving us your understanding of what the passage reads, so that everybody's aware why we're even reading something.
Okay.
I think it's more helpful to do it that way than read the text and expect me to work out what the text is saying. I want you, if you're going to proof text something, for you to tell me what the text means, so I don't have to work it out.
So the book of Daniel was going to be open at the time of the end.
So at the time of the end,
The book of Daniel would be opened, and that says we know that from the book of Daniel, as Brother Mario, he said Daniel chapter 12. He quoted Daniel chapter 12:4. So that just proves that.
so that hasn't proven anything yet, so far, except that it's been opened.
Yeah, at the time of the end.
Okay.
And also the book of Daniel is it's part of the message of that book, contains a prophecy related to the last days, and the last days, I would say, begins at the time of the end. Last days.
You can't say that. You can't say you think the last days is time of the end.
Okay, maybe someone else might want to add.
So are we going to still stick with this passage? Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah,
Okay, so tell me what this passage is saying.
what I think this passage is saying, we don't know yet that time of the end is 1798, but it says that till the time of the end, the book of Daniel is shut up. It's sealed, like we read in Daniel 12 verse 4.
Okay, so there's no new information on that,
There
because
is,
we've already got that.
sorry?
We've already got that information straight out of the Bible.
Yep.
So that doesn't help. I'm saying we already know that. At the time of the end, the book is opened. So what additional information is this passage bringing to us?
Okay. Yeah.
Which
Was that ill?
passage?
Yeah,
The one you quoted?
That was
Oh,
my
okay.
thought, yeah.
There's nothing else?
Yeah.
Brother Larry?
So, I have a different
One.
number.
Okay, so this one,
I'm gonna go past.
I'm just going to do this.
Okay, you do this one first.
Because, no, I'm saying this is not saying anything different. So this just says what 12 is, so it hasn't helped.
Okay.
Unless, because I haven't read it, so you have another one for us.
Yeah, and it's also dealing with Daniel 12:4. So it's Great Controversy 356, paragraph 1.
Okay, is that the next paragraph? Or
Yeah, it
No,
is.
Yes.
yes. Yeah,
Okay, so that-
355, yeah, point 2 you were missing. Yeah, it is.
yeah, 3 and then,
Close,
so
yeah.
tell me what this is saying.
So this one is referring to the opening of the judgment, and it ties in the opening of the judgment with the time of the end.
So this is saying at the time of the end, judgment opens.
Correct.
Okay, so how does that prove that first angel's message arrives?
Well, she specifically says that she ties in Daniel 12:4 and 1798 with the time in the end in that one paragraph. She
Is there 1798 in this paragraph?
yes,
Oh, so tell me a bit more than it, because it's not just that.
yes, it's telling you that.
So tell me what it's saying.
It says at the time of the end.
Don't read it to me.
Okay.
I don't want you to read it to me. I want you to tell me what it says.
Okay, yes. So, it's telling us that in 1798, it is the time of the end. It's
Okay.
the opening of the judgment.
So let me stop there. So this is a proof text to say the time of the end is 1798.
Correct.
Okay? Then,
And then it's talking about that the judgment is to be proclaimed or to open.
okay, the judgment opens.
Yep.
Anything else?
It also talks about 2 Thessalonians verses 2 and 3, but that's really not,
Okay?
I mean, so those are the main 2 points.
So have we connected? So we've got these two. We've got that connected. And read that bit for us from the passage.
Yes. So it says right here,
Give me a chance to find it as well.
yes.
What
356.
356, paragraph 1.
So paragraph 1. So you go ahead and read.
It says, we're going to jump down here where it says the prophecies. The prophecies present a succession of events leading down to the opening of the judgment. This is especially true of the book of Daniel. But that part of his prophecy which related to the last days, Daniel was bidden to close up and seal to the time of the end. Not till we reach this time could a message concerning the judgment be proclaimed based on the fulfillment of these prophecies. But at the time of the end, says the prophet, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Daniel 12:4.
Let me just stop you. You're reading 355, paragraph 3.
No, I'm reading 356, paragraph 1.
No, that was
You're not.
355.
That was the end of 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is 355. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's just the introduction.
Yeah.
Okay?
And so then, now we're on 356, paragraph 1.
Okay?
So right towards the very end, it starts right after it says 1260 years. The next sentence starts with this period.
Yep.
This
Yep.
period ended in 1798.
Referring to 1260.
The coming of Christ could not take place before this time. Paul covers with his caution the whole of the Christian dispensation down to the year 1798. It is this side of that time that the message of Christ's second coming is to be proclaimed.
Okay, so we've got 1798, and how we connected that with the time of the end?
Daniel 12:4 is what she says.
Where's that?
Now we're on
Previous paragraph.
JC 355.3, the very last sentence. But at the time of the end, and she's referring to 1798, which is in the next paragraph. So she's putting them together for us.
Okay? And Sister Shamila, you want to add something that
I
you
want to
neglected
add
here in 355 paragraph 3?
Judgment had come, the hour of judgment had come. So I'm reading that
Okay.
as the first angel's message. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. That's also in italics, so I think that's significant that we should understand that.
And read the whole sentence, the message.
The message of salvation has been preached in all ages, but this message is a part of the gospel which could be proclaimed only in the last days.
Okay, so you've got here gospel. You did say
Yes.
that before, but you didn't stress it, so I didn't put it. So you've got the gospel.
The everlasting gospel, I said.
Yes.
Okay.
So you've got the gospel, and then what?
For only then would it be true that the hour of judgment had come.
So you've got the gospel message connected to judgment. Is everybody okay? Have we proven that the first angel's message arrives at the time of the end in 1798? My brother.
I just wanted to share, specifically, it tells us, it says, but since 1798, the book of Daniel has been unsealed.
Where are we reading?
It is the last sentence of Great Controversy 356.2.
Okay, so yeah, so let's go. Let's read. If you read all of verse 2, paragraph 2.
Paragraph 2? Okay.
No such.
Okay, no such message has ever been given in past ages. Paul, as we have seen, did not preach it. He pointed his brethren into then far distant future for the coming of the Lord. The Reformers did not proclaim it. Martin Luther placed the judgment about 300 years in the future from his day. But since 1798, the book of Daniel has been unsealed. Knowledge of the prophecies has increased, and many have proclaimed the solemn message of the judgment near.
So I want to ask, is everybody okay with these 3 paragraphs? So we went paragraph 1 and 2, we've got 3 paragraphs. Is all that enough information to prove this? It's not? What's missing?
You need, well, for me, Bible references that ties this in as well. Like Daniel 7, which talks about the judgment of the beast that spoke great swelling words. And then it continued on.
Daniel 7,
Daniel 7.
your verse.
Yeah, verse 25 that deals with specifically a portion of it, and a few verses before.
So Daniel 7:25 is going to talk about 1798.
Yes, talks about the judgment of the beast entity that is brought out in Daniel 11:40.
So let's go to Daniel 7. Give me a moment. So you tell me when you get to the verses.
25 and 26.
Okay, well, give me a second. So we're in Daniel 7, verses 25.
And 6. 25 and 26.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of times. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. So you're saying verse 26 is what year?
I didn't put a year to it. I said that it helped to establish the point of the beast, that it receives its judgment and also brings in the aspect of the judgment, which would take me to Revelation 13.
So let me rephrase my question. When does the beast receive its judgment?
I can say beginning with the French Revolution or the
So 1798?
no. Because from 1793,
All I'm asking is, you've quoted verse 26, which is the only one that says judgment, and I'm asking you where you place that judgment. What is that judgment? Because it sounds to me like you're placing it in this history
no.
here.
No. That's why I went back.
I've gone back.
Uh-huh.
So you're placing it in this history.
Yes.
So when it says the judgment shall sit in verse 26, you're telling me the judgment
No.
begins to sit here?
What the judgment shall sit. Well, it would be at 1798, where the books are open. Because that's
Sorry,
the
say
opening
that again?
of the judgment. If the judgment shall sit, it is the opening of the judgment.
So where are you placing that?
1798.
So the books are open in 1798. Does everybody agree with that? The understanding of verse 26 is the books are open in 1798.
No, I agree with
Well,
that. It's important.
Sorry?
no, I'm sorry. I was
I know
thinking
that
aloud?
the books are open.
But you've got to be a bit louder.
Yeah, that's what we need, so yeah, I can't agree.
Are you retracting? I didn't hear what you just said.
I'm not retracting because the opening of the judgment is from 1798. The books are opened 1844.
Okay, so let's run through the words. But the judgment shall sit.
Well,
When's the sitting of the judgment?
Shall sit, that's 1844.
So verse 26 is 1844 or 1798?
1844, which is where the books are open.
1844. Okay, so that's not doing anything about this then?
No, but it highlights the power that would continue for the 1260 years. For the
Okay, but that's only dealing with this history. But it doesn't talk about when the judgment sits.
To 1798. Because the 1260 has a starting point and it has an ending point. It is a specific period of time.
But if you're going to connect the judgment to that, you're going to say, you're making this the judgment of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you think that verse 26 is saying?
No. I understand it to be the opening of the books.
Which books? The books of life and etc. for the righteous dead.
Yes.
Is that what you think this is?
Yes.
So why are you connecting it to verse 25 then? Because it's two separate histories, two separate judgments.
It is.
So why are you connecting them for?
Not sure at this time.
Does everybody agree? Okay, so you're saying it's not here, so I can take that out.
Yes. Verse 26 with the opening of the books, you can take it out.
So you want to put it here?
Yes.
Does everybody agree with that? The verse 26 is there. Brother Tyler?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so what's the connection between 25 and 26 then? There's no connection.
Yes, there
It
has
gives you
to
the time
be.
period of the 46 years.
No, the connection between 25 and 26, there's no connection.
Yes, there is.
I was asking Brother Tyler.
I
Don't answer for him.
know she was making a different point with it. She was trying to
I know, but she's retracted, even though she didn't, even though she said she hasn't.
yeah.
So I'm asking you, if you agreed with that,
Yeah.
and you agree with her that 25 is here, verse 25 and verse 26. So I'm asking you, why is verse 25 and 26 connected together if they're talking about two separate things?
Because it gives you the time of the judgment. The judgment hour message is being given from 1798 to.
It says the judgment sits. It doesn't talk about the judgment hour.
No,
Because you're going to do what she did, bring the judgment back to here then.
No, that's not what I'm doing.
Then where's the judgment hour? Tell me where the judgment hour is.
Well,
Tell me where the judgment hour begins.
I guess
Here.
it would be 1798.
So you're doing what she did.
Is the judgment hour from the beginning or is it at the
You
end?
tell me. You brought that up.
I didn't bring anything up.
You brought judgment hour. You said the hour, I think. We need to record these because people are slippery.
I think that when the judgment sits is October 22nd.
Okay, so verse 26 is here.
Yeah. That's when when the books are open, the judgment is
Who's being judged?
the righteous dead.
Okay, so this is good people. Good in the sense that they're God's people. Verse 25 is dealing with what? The
Bad
beast.
people.
Judgment.
So this is dealing with bad people. So my question is, verse 25 and verse 26 are not connected then. They're unrelated subjects. If you're talking about the beast, then you're skipping 46 years and now you're talking about God's people. Two separate groups.
They're two separate groups, but they're not unrelated.
Because this is the judgment of bad people and this is the judgment of good people.
But they're still related.
So there's no judgment of there's no judgment of the beast in either of these verses, is there? Doesn't mention any judgment of the bad people.
Not directly.
So you agree that it's not, there isn't one.
No.
If you're going to say not directly,
Agreeing.
with who?
Because then I would tie in Revelation 13.
Yeah, but you got to stick with Daniel 7.
No, but
Before you
you're
go to
asking me-
13.
And you're asking me for proof text, and I'm saying that For additional evidence, I would add Revelation 13.
It's not a second witness, because I don't agree with your first premise.
No, but it wasn't. Remember, you were asking my evidence, not on your agreement, but what I would do.
Yes,
So
then when you
now-
gave, that's fine. Well, when you gave it, now I'm not just going to let you go. Now I want you to run through your logic, because you moved from here to here. So I've moved you from there to there.
Yes.
So if you moved it, then what the problem you've got is they're two unrelated subjects.
But they can't be unrelated.
I'm saying they are, because one's about bad and one's about good. So if they're unrelated,
But they are related by judgment.
show me where the beast is judged in verse 25.
No, but that
It's not in verse 25.
Okay, see, you don't have two judgments.
It's one judgment.
Yes. So
Verse 26.
let me offer you something. let me offer you my version. The verse 26 is not 1844.
It's 1798.
It's not 1798.
It's the end of the world.
It's the millennial judgment,
Yeah.
because it's talking about the beast and how the beast is going to be judged. It's not a judgment of good people, it's the judgment of the beast in the millennium. Because then you have a judgment of the beast, but it's nothing to do with this history, unless we have a different reform line. But it connects the verses together, because that's what God wants to do. What is verses? It was interesting that you took us to those verses, because picking up from verse 23-ish, what are all these last few verses all about anyway? Pick up from verse 19. Just what does verse 19, the beginning of the thing, say?
Fourth beast.
Fourth beast.
No, 19. The beginning of 19.
Saying then I would know the truth.
Okay, so then I would know the truth. So what is that? It's a question. Who's asking the question?
Is it a question or a statement?
If I said, then I would know the truth, what would that mean? What do you think that means in plain English? Then I would know the truth.
I would think it's a statement.
Brother Theodore, then I would know the truth in plain English. Just that phrase.
Just that phrase.
Then I would know the truth.
Well, it can be a question. It can be,
It-
if this is answering my question, then I would know the truth. It's saying, this is the answer to a question. I would know the truth. If I have a question, I want to know the truth of the fourth beast. So that's what it's implying.
So
The answer is going to be given to this question.
who's speaking when he says, then I would know the truth? Who is that?
Daniel.
So this is who's Daniel speaking to?
Gabriel.
Gabriel.
So Daniel and Gabriel are having a conversation, and Daniel's saying to Gabriel, has Gabriel already given him information before? He's already given him the interpretation of all this vision, and now what is Daniel saying now, after all this interpretation? He's saying, that interpretation is not good enough. So the interpretation that Gabriel's already given him isn't good enough, so he says, then I would know some further information about what you're teaching, or what that vision was. So now Gabriel's going to have to repeat the information that he's already given. And that's what all the rest of the chapter's all about. So verse 26 is an interpretation of the vision. And that vision takes us all the way to the very end.
Right.
So I don't know if we agree with that, but I'm saying, because I want to back out this, verse 26 is neither 1844 or 1798.
Though, as Seventh-day Adventists, we standardly take that verse and apply it to the judgment in 1844.
Yeah. But I hope you can see why I don't think why you can't do that.
No, I.
Okay, so my brother.
No, I was just seeing something as you were saying with that question. Then I would know the truth. And if I'm going to read that verse 19, verse 19, that sentence, and then just jump over to 26 and 27, then it would kind of begin to give you a little understanding of what the answer to his question is. When in verse 26 it says, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And verse 27 says, and the kingdom and dominion And the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him.
Does everybody agree with that? Verse 19 is talking about what? Daniel wants to know about what?
The fourth beast.
The fourth kingdom. Wants to know about this fourth kingdom. And the rest of the chapter, Gabriel's going to explain it. It's all about that fourth kingdom, the fourth beast. In verse 26 he says, but the judgment shall sit. So the problem that you are facing with, talks about sitting under judgment, and there's no judgment that's sitting here. We know there's a judgment sits here, but the problem with that is, which you let me get away with, is that when it says the judgment shall sit, I said it's the judgment of the righteous, but the verse doesn't say that. It's not the judgment of the righteous, it is the judgment of the wicked, which is the connection between 25 and 26. So you were not clued up then. You let me get away with a lot, but it can't be here. Can we see that?
Yes.
Yeah? There's other bits and pieces. So anyway, let's back out of that, because that wasn't where we were.
Really?
We took a standard dead end. So we're here. Have we proven that 1798 is the time of the end, is the first angel's message? To everybody's satisfaction. Brother Jonathan, you don't look happy.
I would like to know, okay, you say arrival. How do I know that there's a distinction between arrival and empowerment?
I didn't mention the word empowerment. I just mentioned it came. I can change the word arrival to comes.
Okay.
It begins.
Okay.
Has it got anything to do with that quote up there?
No.
I don't know. Probably. That wasn't my intention. That's our memory verse. That one up there. Are we okay that we can prove that now? Silence means yes?
No.
No?
Well,
You're not happy?
I'm not.
No.
Why are you not happy?
Because I honestly don't think that enough evidence was given.
So this one GC quote's not enough?
Yes, for me.
I'm only asking about you, I'm not asking about anyone else.
BC.
Only the people in the room.
No, but just the same that you said that I allowed you to get away with 1844 and the judgment being. What about if it is a non-Adventist?
We shouldn't be talking to non-Adventists. Should we? I'm telling on you.
Divide the word the same way.
We were talking to an Adventist who holds that 1798 is not the time of the end.
That's because they don't believe in the spirit of prophecy.
They said they believed it and they read the passage and they said it still does not prove that it is the time of the end.
But I'm saying, does it prove it to your satisfaction? Because I can't answer for everyone. If you got some more proof.
I think it was good. Good enough.
Okay, it's good enough. I know Brother Theodore's desperate, but I want to try and keep it with the students. Are we okay? So where are we going to go now? We're going to go to the everlasting gospel. It doesn't say everlasting, it says gospel, but we'll go to the everlasting gospel. So where we're in Revelation 14. Okay, so before we do that, you said the book is opened. What book is opened? You said that, my brother.
Oh.
That was your verse, I'm pretty sure. What book is opened?
That had to be Daniel 10.
Sorry?
That
I didn't hear what you said. Daniel 10.
Daniel 10 to Revelation 5.
Sorry. We're in Daniel 12:4. It says at the time of the end.
Oh, sorry.
Don't help him. We're missing 2 people. I just realised.
Yeah.
That's why it was so quiet. 12:4. Are you there? But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Where'd you get books opened, or book opened?
Alright, let's go to Daniel. Go to verse 9.
Verse 9. And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end.
And we look at Revelation 10:4.
I just want to know what book. What book is this that's opened?
In the Millerite history, I'm saying that that's the opening up of when the mighty angel comes down.
You still, what book is it?
The Bible.
Daniel.
So the Daniel, the Bible.
Well, it's Daniel.
My brother?
Daniel.
Daniel chapter 8 verse 14.
Daniel 8:14.
Says,
Unto 2,300 days then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
Yeah.
Is that the book that's opened?
Yeah, that was the book that was opened, because 1790, that was talking about the opening of the judgment. And we know that 2,300 years into the opening of the judgment.
So you're saying it's not even a book, it's just a verse?
It's a book. A portion of Daniel that was opened at 1790.
So you're saying it's not a book, it's just a verse, 8:14?
Yes.
So someone said it's the Bible, someone says it's the book of Daniel, and someone says it's just Daniel 8:14. Brother Tyler?
So in this context, without going to, if you're not going to go to Revelation or any of those things, you know, the only book that he has charge over is the words that he's writing, so it has to just be Daniel. I don't think he can seal up some other book. He's writing Daniel.
We're reading 12:4, and then you took us to 12:9.
Yes.
12:4 says that, But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book.
Yes.
Okay, so that we're getting the book that's sealed.
Right.
And you're saying that book is
Daniel.
Daniel. And
It's a portion of the prophecy.
Waiting for definite time.
yeah, but you're going to quote SOP quote to me, my brother.
Alright.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying I shouldn't go to Revelation as yet?
Are you done here?
Because I'm going to Revelation. I'm going to Revelation 10:4 to substantiate.
So you're saying
With additional
which one is it?
From Sister White.
Which one is it?
Which one?
Daniel, the Bible, or just 8:14?
Oh, it's Daniel. Here it is talking about the book.
Sorry?
Daniel and Revelation
It's
is the whole Bible.
No, it's Daniel, the part dealing with the time, the prophecy dealing with the time of the end.
So you tell me which one it is, my sister, or another one. I'll give you a second, Brother Luke.
Yeah, before I drift away, we're just trying to prove that 1798 is the time of the end.
We've proven that.
We've proven that. So where are we now?
You already drifted before you drifted away. 10 minutes ago. We've already proven that the time of the end is 1798.
Yeah.
We've proven that the judgment opens then, and we've proven that it's that part of the gospel which relates to the last days or the judgment being opening. So we've got the gospel, we've got the time of the end is 1798. So we've got 1798 time of the end, and then it says the gospel that's related to judgment, and it's the last days. So Revelation 14:6 and 7, the first angel. So we've tied all of that together. So now all I'm asking is, it said the book was opened. It didn't say open, it says unsealed.
Yeah.
And I'm asking, what book is it that's unsealed? So I've got Bible, the whole of Daniel or just Daniel 8:14?
Are you wanting a spirit of prophecy quote, or
Just give me your answer first.
I think it's
Because if you're going to give me a spirit of prophecy quote, you can just paraphrase it and then you'd get the correct
yeah. I'm
answer.
trying to remember what she says though.
Okay. So find the spirit of prophecy quote then. My brother, you're going to take us to Revelation 10:4 now, you said.
Alright, let me change that and say Revelation 5 first.
So the book that was open is Revelation.
We're going to see that in Revelation 5 verse 1 down.
But what? So you're saying, yeah, but you're saying Revelation chapter 5 has been unsealed at the time of the end.
We're seeing the narrative of that book that is opening in Daniel, or the portion of in Revelation. We are seeing that book that is opening from.
Oh, okay, but Revelation 5 is going to describe the scene. I'm asking what's open though, because Revelation 5 isn't unsealed.
No.
So what is unsealed?
Larry's got the quote.
Before we read the quote, because I think you've got the quote as well, yeah? What are you looking for? I'm not sure what you're... We're waiting for you.
Oh, you ready?
Oh, yeah, I was ready.
What I'm seeing in Revelation 5 is it's describing that book that
That's fine. It's describing which book? We said that book, which one? That's what I want to know, which one?
the book of Daniel.
So you're saying it's the book of Daniel?
Yes.
Okay, the whole of Daniel? All 12 chapters are unsealed here.
No, it's that portion that.
So it's not the book of Daniel?
It's not the complete book of Daniel, but that portion of Daniel.
Tell me the portion then that's unsealed. That's all I'm asking for. My brother at the back said 8:14.
Yeah.
So you say you're agreeing with him? Are you conferring?
No, I'm not.
I'm going to separate you to confer. I just have this problem with husbands and
They're
wives.
allowed. They're one flesh.
Just, all I want to know is what portion, because now you're saying it's a portion. Just tell me the portion.
Prophecies leading down to the last day. Clear that out.
Okay, my brother, read give us the quote. It's too late. We can't wait.
So there's two selected messages.
Second selected messages,
105.
paragraph 2.
Paragraph, well, it continues on in 2.
Okay, 1 and 2. Is that the one that you had, Brother Larry?
No.
You had another one?
Acts of the Apostles has it.
Sorry?
Acts of the Apostles.
Is it the same one?
I don't know.
Okay, so Acts of the Apostles, is that the one you had, Brother Larry?
Yes.
Page?
585, paragraph 1.
Okay, so if you go ahead and read second selected messages.
It says, the book that was sealed was not the book of Revelation, but that portion of the prophecy of Daniel which related to the last days.
So could you read it a little bit slower so that people can...
The book that was sealed was not the book of Revelation, but that portion of the prophecy of Daniel which related to the last days. The scripture says, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. When the book was opened, the proclamation was made. Time shall be no longer. See Revelation 10:6. The book of Daniel is now unsealed, and the revelation made by Christ to John is to come to all inhabitants of the earth. By the increase of knowledge, a people is to be prepared to stand in the latter days. The Sabbath, the great issue. Oh, this is...
Is that the same passage?
Yes.
It's the same one. So we read second selected messages 105. You read paragraphs 1 and 2?
that was just one.
The book that was sealed was not the book of Revelation, but that portion of the prophecy of Daniel which related to the last days. So which portion of the prophecy of Daniel relates to the last days? The brother?
Daniel 11, verse 40.
So that was unsealed at the time of the end?
Yeah, that was one of the portion that was unsealed.
So the Millerites knew about that?
Not really.
1798.
Portion to the increase of knowledge. The time of the end, as we were dealing with the time of the end with the king, the two kings, they will never understand the two kings in that time period.
They did or they didn't?
Did not.
So how could it have been unsealed?
So I will stick with Daniel 8:14.
Yep.
So we've got 8:14. Anything else? Brother Larry?
I would say as we look on the chart, Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, those were the portions of Daniel that were opened up to the Millerites.
So you say Daniel 2, 7, 8.
8. And that's what's on the 1843 chart.
Where's that?
If you look at the chart with
It's 2,
there, that's
7 and 8.
correct.
Yep.
Anything else? Everybody agree with that or disagree? Do you agree with that, brother? Because it's different to what you're saying.
Yes.
No, because Daniel 8 would have Daniel 8:14 in it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but it's not Daniel 2 and 7.
Yeah, oh, okay.
You're making it a lot broader. Anyone else?
In Daniel 8, for example, that was not unsealed. That was not sealed because Gabriel already gave Daniel interpretation about who the ram is, who the wither is. So, if it's what Larry said, it's not a whole chapter that was sealed, just maybe a portion.
Okay, so which portion of Daniel 8?
If we talk now only about Daniel 8, I would agree with Jason. It's only Daniel 8:14.
So it's only
Maybe
8.
including 13 and 14.
Okay, so it's only 8:14.
If we just talk about chapter 8.
What about 7? What did the Millerites know about 7? Sorry?
1260.
They know about the 1260. That's just been unsealed.
If it was just being unsealed, no, because Ellen White says that Luther placed the judgment sometime after 1798.
What does that mean?
In commenting on in the same passage of Great Controversy 355 and on, she says that Luther placed the judgment. So they were looking at the judgment of the great whore of Bible prophecy just the same, and she said he placed it after the time of the end.
300 years in the future.
Yes.
From
She
him?
said- yes.
And what is he doing? This one or this one?
Not sure.
If you go from 1500, roughly 300 years, you end up in the time period of 1800.
It's here, isn't it?
Yeah. So he knew about the 1260.
That's what I'm saying. That
Well, yeah, but he might have known that something about 1260. But does he know the dates?
No, because she said sometime. There was no specific.
Brother Theodore, before 1798, does anybody know 1798?
Lots of people.
They know the date. So they've calculated the 1260 from when it starts, and they know it's going to hit 1798.
Yeah, there are different opinions about it, but there are people who do mark 1798.
Okay, so it's not a clear, unequivocal message, or
Well, there's different groups of people who have different interpretations, but there are some people who have that interpretation. Another interpretation was that the 1260 starts in 606. So I mean, you have different interpretations for starting the 1260 and when it was going to end.
so which groups are identifying 1798, like close by or like long before?
Some quite a bit before. There's people who had 1798. Well, no, The actual date, 1798?
The actual date?
It's after 1798 that people nail that down.
Okay, so...
Yeah, you're correct, yeah.
Okay.
People had the starting point about correct, but the actual 1798, once the Pope was taken captive, then they used 1798.
Can we find 1260 in chapter 8 anywhere? The 1260, do you find it in chapter 8? No? I don't mean by inference, don't mean like the last end of the indignation and the trampling of the host. I mean directly. Did you find it in chapter 2?
No.
Do you find it in chapter 7?
Yes.
Okay. What are the verses in 7?
25.
25.
Only?
Well, that's the time where it mentions the times and a half.
Yeah, I mean in all its forms. So it's 25 and?
26 deals with the judgment of the beast.
But just the 1260, I'm thinking.
I only know the 1260 verse 25 specifically.
Sorry?
It's in verse 25. Yeah.
Just verse 25?
Yes.
So it's only one place?
Well, the 1260s mentioned several places in Scripture, but in Daniel chapter 7,
okay,
it's found in verse 25.
So is that unsealed to them?
Yes, it would be.
So that's unsealed now. What's unsealed in Daniel 2? What's on what's on this on this chart here?
14.
Sorry?
14.
14.
No one knew about that before? Well, it just says in the verse 4 kingdoms.
Not 4, he says 4.
Fourth.
The fourth, yeah.
What about the fourth that gets unsealed?
The fourth kingdom is the papacy.
So in before 1798, people don't know that the fourth kingdom is the papacy.
So we have to wait until the man of perdition is revealed.
Because for what Brother Theodore was saying, people are already predicting approximately 1798, so they know in this history here that the demise of the papacy is about to happen. So they already knew who the papacy was, or the fourth kingdom. I'm just wondering in Daniel 2, what is actually unsealed then that no one knew or understood before?
44, 45. Talking about the judgment.
245, 44?
I'm guessing if we're gonna find something in there that, this is a post 1844 kind of thing, or I mean post 1798.
Anyone else? Brother Theodore, you had your hand up? In Daniel 2?
Yeah, in Daniel 2, I mean, obviously it gives some background for them to understand Daniel 11, verse 31 and 12, verse 11. So, I mean, there was but that understanding to a large degree was already put together. I mean, specifically, the main understanding that for Miller to understand the 2300 days, he had to understand the correct view of the daily. Because if he didn't understand the correct view of the daily, he wouldn't have had an understanding of the ending of the 2300 days. So some of that comes from chapter 2, but only by inference as he compares it with Daniel 11 and Daniel 8.
Okay, so that's I think what Brother Tyler's saying when it's in verses 44 and 45. It says in the days of these kings,
right,
he's going to start inferring that whether he's right or wrong,
the daily,
he's going to start talking about these kings as being the kingdoms of the earth, and he's going to say that in Daniel 8 where? The daily. Sorry? Without looking. No, without looking, you're turning the pages. And? And? 11. Yeah? 11, 12 and 13, 3 places. Where are the other 2 places it's found in Daniel?
11:31.
Sorry? 11:31
12, 12, 13,
12, 11. Okay. So I'm going to put 244 and 45. And we're going to put here we'll put 11, but on the chart it doesn't, when it talks about the daily, which is here, it doesn't quote from Daniel 8, does it? Where's it quoting from? No reading. Where's it quoting from?
11:31, isn't it?
11:31, yeah? So it's 11, no, 11:31, it's 12:11.
12:11, okay.
11 and 12, it's 12. So we've got to put Daniel 12 here as well now. Yeah? So it's 12, 11 and 12. Quick question.
Quick or trick?
A quick trick question. Brother Theodore mustn't answer these questions. Why did they quote from Daniel 12 and not Daniel 8? My sister. You don't know? Sister Shamila. Why do they put, when we talk about the daily today, we always go on about Daniel 8.
Can I give a hint?
No, they've got Daniel 8. They quote Daniel 12. Why are they quoting Daniel 12? Why are they not quoting Daniel 8? Because it's all the daily. Daniel 8, 11, 12, 13, 11, 31, 12, 11. Why they quote from there, not 8? Because everything seems to be focused about 8. Brother Theodore said you can't get 8:14 without 11. The reason you can't get 8:14 from 8, unless you know 8:11 is because in verse 13 the question is how long shall be the vision concerning the daily? The answer is 8:14. So you need to know about what the daily is. So you go to verse 11 to obviously hammer all that out. Why did they quote from 12 and not 8?
Who's they, sorry?
Miller.
Joshua V. Himes.
Because of the 13.
I wouldn't know how to answer that now.
Okay, my brother.
Well, my thought was it's the connection with the 1290, and that's the beginning point that leads to 1823.
Can I just interrupt you? I don't know what the audio is like, but can you just speak a little bit louder? Because sometimes I'm always on the back end of these problems,
Yeah,
and that people can't hear.
The beginning of the 1290 years begins at 508, and Daniel 12 is where the 1290 year prophecy is mentioned, at least to 1843. So that's what came to mind.
My sister? I forgot what your name is. Alyssa?
Yes.
Why Daniel 12 and not Daniel 8?
I liked what Nathan had to say about that.
So did I. What did he say?
That this more than 8:11 connected the time prophecy, the time connection, the 1290 to 1843.
That's 13:45.
I am not good at the dates at this moment in time, so please forgive me.
You don't need forgiveness. It's okay. Jonathan. Sorry, Jonathan. Why?
I think it's with, I don't know, but I think it's connected to the 1290 and the 1335. That he is, they have the same beginning at 508, with the taking away of the daily. And they were predicting 1843, and we know the 1335 end in 1843.
Is that the point you were making?
Yeah, well, I confused 1798 and
A little louder, Nathan.
I confused 1798 and 1843 for a second, but yeah, he made the point clear that I had it.
So start again.
Sorry?
Said that again.
I think they quote Daniel 12:11 because the 12:90 and the 13:35 have the same starting point, 508, with taking away of the daily.
508,
Yes,
1290,
to 1798,
and then 1335.
to 1843. Yes.
Oops. 1843
Three.
and 1798.
Yep.
Yep.
Does everybody agree with that? Brother Larry agrees, and my brother next to him disagrees. Why they using 12 and not 8?
Because in verse 11, it is talking about the day, and as you have on the board, the 508, but it talks about a power, the abomination that make it desolate.
Could you speak a little bit louder for me?
It says that the abomination that make it desolate shall be set up. And we know that that abomination that make desolate is 538, which is a papacy. So we need the 538.
You mean you don't even agree with the calculation?
No, I agree with the calculation, but I'm looking at the 5. Verse 11 is talking about 508
Yes.
and 538.
Okay, but we're talking about the daily,
Okay.
not the abomination that maketh desolate. So we're talking about daily. So my question is, why are they using 12 and not 8? Do we know? So William Miller was given what?
The commencement.
of the great chain of truth.
Okay, so is that enough of a clue? Sister Shamel, is that enough of a clue?
Yeah.
Go ahead then. Why chapter 12 and not chapter 8?
Because I need to look at Daniel 12. It is those prophecies that have already been mentioned.
Okay, so it mentions those prophecies, but I want a conceptual answer. Why not 8?
It's not coming to my mind at this point.
Okay. Anyone else? Brother Larry, you had a point?
I was just going to say the same thing. I agree that they had Daniel 12, 11, and 12 because it directly deals with the 1335 and the 1290, which all ends in 1843, and that's what they were using.
Not all ends.
Not all of them, but no, 508 into 1798. And then so they were pointing to 1443, and they were proving that through the daily.
Okay, so what's their chart look like? Here's the chart. If this was the 1850 chart, you can see the box, yeah? I'm saying there's a box here, but they haven't put the lines on. Yeah? So we spoke about the commencement dates. We didn't, maybe someone want to pull up that passage. I think early writings, 200 something.
229.
Okay. Early writings, 229. I'll just for paraphrasing, it says Gabriel was sent to him, to William Miller, and angels basically worked on his mind, and he was given the commencement of the chain of truth. Okay, so it begins in the year 677, yeah, and then it goes to 457, and then it goes to what? 508. And each one of these leads you to the same point. which is 1843. Yeah, 1843. Yeah? So the reason why they have to use Daniel 12 and not Daniel 8 is because their focus is at the end. And all of these 3 dates lead you down to that point. So that's why they're using 12 and not 8. Does that make sense? Just a random question. I don't want to spend time addressing this. What's the year of the taking away of the daily in Daniel 8:11? Where we focus. Is it the same date? Do you all know it's not the same date? It's not the same event, it's not the same history. It's total random history. Totally different history. Did they have that unsealed to them, by the way? Daniel 8:11. Because remember, Brother Theodore says, to understand 8:14, you have to understand the daily. And that brings you to 2 Thessalonians, which is the argument that Miller brought to us. And I put 11 here, but they don't. So I'm not going to say they don't. I'm asking you, is 11 unsealed for them so that they can now get to 8:13, which is now would then be unsealed because they know what the daily is, which could get them to 8:14. Did they get the unsealing of the daily from 8:11? The answer is no, because on the chart they're going to take you to where it was unsealed in Daniel 12. Because Daniel 8:11 isn't even the same history, it's not the same event. It's a totally different story. And I don't think it was unsealed to them.
No, they didn't understand it.
No.
They actually got it wrong.
Why would it be still sealed to them? If we read the GC quote. Because that GC quote was talking about what? The gospel and the judgment that's dealing with what history?
And last days.
The last days. So what does that tell you? If they don't understand 11, is that the last days?
No.
It's not the last days. 8:11 is back in history, and that's why they don't even understand that. There's so much things they don't understand about old history, previous history, the ancient times, that we're required to understand because we're using different methodologies, different thoughts, ideas, but they understand everything in the last days. So can you see, all I want us to see by that is conceptually, when we start thinking about 1798, they have light on all the information that's going to be dealt with at the end, but there's many things at the beginning that they don't understand. And that's part of what our job is, to pick up all those loose ends and tie them together. So they have light on 12, because 12 is taking them down to this history, but they don't have light on 8:11. Does that make reasonable sense? Yep, no. Okay, let's go back to the second messages quote.
Yeah, just one comment. One of the things I was going to give as a hint is it was in God's providence that they had that, because if they had 8:11 on there for the taking away of the daily, they would have actually had the wrong history, right? So God in His providence had them not put that on there, in my understanding.
Or maybe they were just good Bible students.
Yeah.
They were just clever.
Well, but there's lots of things that aren't on the 1843 chart that they could have put on. Like they could have had 33 AD for the crucifixion of Christ, but they didn't put that on there.
Okay? The book that was sealed was not the book of Revelation, but that portion of the prophecy of Daniel which related to the last days. So, does that make sense? Just that little story about why it's Daniel 12 and not Daniel 8. Because Daniel 8:11, with respect to the daily, is not the last days. Now we're going to get that history and make it into the last days, aren't we? Isn't that what we do? We take Daniel 8:11 is a historical event back here somewhere. So They don't have information on that because it's not going to be unsealed to them. What's unsealed is the events that bring you down to the end of the world. But what we do is we go back to Daniel 8:11 and we get that historical event which is now unsealed to us, and we're going to bring that history into the end of the world. And they didn't really have that ability to do that. They don't go into the line of Christ and say, because they know the second angel's message arrives, don't they? They have the awareness of its arrival. But they don't say, by the way, it arrived when Jesus cleansed the temple, as an example. They have no understanding of that. All their understanding of Old Testament history is Old Testament history. It's all linear or sequential. Is that a fair representation? Yeah? So they're working sequentially. They don't go back into those old histories and bring them into their own time period or in their own dispensation. Do you agree with that? So part of what their problem was that limited them in their understanding of the scriptures was what? That they would only work sequentially.
Right.
So if you only work sequentially, you're going to cut away a lot of information that you're able to glean if you don't do that. So if you say like, this is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, all they would do is say, that was the beginning in the history of Christ. I'm not sure they'd actually say it this way. And this was 34, and you go 1810 years, and you get to 1844. I know they didn't do this calculation per se, but that's the approach that they have. Everything in history is a starting point of some kind of prophecy in some shape or form that leads you to the end. That's what they're doing here. They're taking historical events and just bringing you down to the end of the world, which is what our church still currently does.
Yep.
Yeah? And that's what the problem is. I don't know if you use this phrase here, we're stuck in a rut. Do you have that concept? Yeah, we're stuck in this rut, and what we need to do is re-examine how we approach Scripture. And it's in the reapproach of Scripture that we actually say this is not just the beginning of a time prophecy that takes you here. This actually is the end. Isaiah 46:10 is an example. This is teaching you what the end is going to be like. Because we're going to get to that verse and we're going to not rewrite it, we're going to understand it in a different way. So when we say the word, are you familiar with Isaiah 46:10? It says from. I'll show you the end from the beginning. How do we interpret that, my sister? You know this answer. How do we deal with Isaiah 46 when it says, I'll show you the end from the beginning?
Declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done. That verse?
That's the verse.
Okay, like you had expressed, it's basically telling you that the components of the beginning is found in the end. So you can see from historical events, what is to happen in the future. And it takes to mind Ecclesiastes 1 verses 9 through to 11 and verses 3, 14 and 15.
My brother.
It's inferring there that history is going to repeat. And if history repeats, and that brings you to our whole understanding of interpreting Scripture here at the time of the end by comparing line upon line and not linearly.
You said infer.
Yeah.
You already get an inference, or is it a hard statement?
If you're declaring the end from the beginning, you're actually having to show the end from the beginning. So it's not. It's just a different way of wording it, but it's a repeat of history.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
Do we have to finish now? Brother Theodore?
Well, just They did have somewhat an understanding of type and antitype, which does relate to that. They hadn't developed it completely, but they did have the seeds of it, especially as they got into, closer to 1844. So type and antitype does show the beginning illustrates the end. They just didn't develop it.
In summary, we've looked at the Millerite history. We've got the time of the end, 1798, the first angel's message, and hopefully we've been able to see that we can prove that. So we've done that. We went to second selected messages, 105, 1 and 2. What is that? Why did we go here for? What's the reason that we've gone to this passage?
We wanted to know if the whole Bible, if there's just a portion which is unsealed or sealed up, or.
Okay, so we went here to see which portion of what was unsealed, and it says a portion of.
Portion of the book of Daniel.
It says portion of the book of Daniel. So it's partially right to say Daniel and partially right to say 8:14, but it's not. They're not really technically the correct answers. It's all the portions of the book of Daniel that relate only to the last days. They're the only bits that were unsealed, and you can draw them from different chapters. So we've got Daniel 2, 7, 8 and 12. By inference we might go to some others because they've got some similar thoughts and ideas to them, but they're key points that we want to pick up. So it's the last portion of the book of Daniel that was unsealed. And we went to Daniel 7 to talk about that judgment, and we saw that in 7:26 it's the millennial judgment. So I guess it will be next week. We'll see how this works. I don't know if I can do this or if it's even good to do a week delay on a study like this, because it is once a week. Okay, we'll see how it goes. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness and mercy. We want to ask and pray that you would be with us, bless us and guide us. Help us to find wisdom and understanding in your word. And through this understanding, Lord, may we have a change of disposition. May our characters be developed, and that we might experience the mind of Christ in our lives. Please be with us and please bless us to this end. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.